Most women think men are emotionally unavailable. They think they're mystery boxes that just won't open, no matter how hard you pry. But here is the truth. A man isn't afraid of commitment. He's afraid of committing to the wrong environment. Stop trying to use a crowbar to get him to open up. That just makes him tighten the bolts on his armor. Today, I'm going to show you the 6 psychological pillars that create a vulnerability vacuum. The only environment where a man feels safe enough to drop his guard and actually anchor his heart to yours. If you want to move from being just a date to his absolute sanctuary, you need to watch this. We've been told for decades that men are these mystery boxes that won't open. We're told they are afraid of commitment and terrified of feelings. But I want to tell you something different today. A man isn't afraid of commitment. He is afraid of committing to the wrong environment. A man bonds emotionally only when one specific thing happens, when his protective ego feels it is no longer under attack. You see, from the time they are boys, men are taught that the world is a place where they must perform, provide, and protect. They spend their entire lives wearing a suit of armor. Most women try to get a man to open up by trying to pry that armor off with a crowbar. They ask, "What are you thinking?" Or "Why won't you talk to me?" But that crowbar, it just makes him tighten the bolts. He bonds when he realizes that with you, he doesn't have to be the hero or the winner every single second. He bonds in the quiet moments, the shoulder-to-shoulder moments. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're cooking together, or maybe you're just sitting in silence. It's in those moments, when there is no pressure to perform, that the armor starts to feel heavy. And if, and only if, he feels that you are a non-reactive sanctuary, he will begin to take it off himself. He's looking for the safety to fail. He's looking for the woman who sees him at his weakest, and doesn't look at him with disappointment, but with certainty. When he realizes that you are the one person in the world who doesn't need him to be perfect, to be enough. He doesn't just like you. He doesn't just date you. He anchors to you. He realizes that you are the only place in the world where he can finally breathe. Stop trying to force the bond. Start building the sanctuary, because a man will never leave the place where he feels truly seen, truly respected, and finally, safely, at rest. The competence connection, why shoulder to shoulder wins. If you want to understand the architecture of masculine bonding, you have to look at how men are socialized from the playground to the boardroom. For most men, eye-to-eye contact is a signal of competition or confrontation. Think about it in sports, in business, or in a standoff. Looking someone directly in the eyes is an act of challenge. But when a man is engaged in a task, when he is working, building, or solving, he is in his natural element. This is where the competence connection begins. A man doesn't typically bond through the interrogation of a candlelit dinner. He bonds when he feels competent and useful in your presence. The myth of the dinner table. Many women make the mistake of trying to force emotional intimacy by sitting a man down and saying, "We need to talk about our feelings." To a man, this feels like being pulled into a performance review. The spotlight is on him, the expectations are high, and he feels a sudden pressure to get the answers right, because he doesn't want to fail at the test of the relationship. His defensive walls go up. He becomes stoic, or worse, he gives safe answers just to end the discomfort. The competence connection flips this script. It suggests that a man's emotional guard drops when his hands are busy. This is the shoulder-to-shoulder rule. Whether you are hiking, cooking a complex meal together, assembling furniture, or even just driving on a long road trip, the focus is shifted away from his internal psyche and onto an external goal. In this side-by-side state, he feels capable. He is winning at the task at hand, and because he feels like a winner in your company, he naturally begins to associate you with his highest sense of self. The hero chemical. When a man feels useful, when he fixes something for you, gives you advice on a problem, or leads a joint project, his brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals associated with reward and bonding. He isn't just helping, he is experiencing enthusiastic agency. He feels like the hero in the narrative of your afternoon. Hamage, a high-definition conceptual diagram of two people working together on a project, with glowing lines of connection forming between them as they focus on the task, rather than each other. If you allow him to step into that role without micro-managing him or criticizing his methods, you are building a foundation of trust. You are telling him, "I trust your competence." To a man, that is the ultimate aphorism. When he feels that you believe in his ability to handle the world, he feels safe enough to let you handle his heart. He stops viewing you as a judge. He has to impress and starts viewing you as a teammate he can rely on. Collaboration over interrogation. Ultimately, the competence connection is about validation through action. He isn't going to tell you his deepest fears because you asked. He's going to tell you because you spent 3 hours working toward a common goal, and in the relaxed, high dopamine state of that accomplishment, his protective ego finally went on break. He bonds when he realizes that being with you doesn't feel like work. It feels like success. By creating opportunities for him to be competent and collaborative, you aren't just getting things done, you are opening the back door to his emotional world. You are showing him that in your presence, he doesn't just have to be enough, he already is the man for the job. The safety to fail protocol, the ultimate emotional anchor in a world that demands constant performance, strength, and stoicism from men. The most radical thing a woman can provide is a space where the mask can finally slip. For most men, life is an endless series of evaluations, from the pressure to provide at work, to the social expectation to always have the answer. This creates a permanent state of high alert. A man will enjoy your company when he's winning, but he will only bond emotionally when he realizes he is safe with you even when he is losing. This is the safety to fail protocol, the performance trap. From a young age. Many men are taught that their value is tied directly to their utility. If they aren't winning, providing, or fixing, they feel invisible or worse, replaceable. This leads to a performance trap in relationships, where a man feels he must always be the hero to keep your interest. He shows you his highlights, his successes, and his strength because he is terrified that if you see his doubt, his exhaustion, or his failure, your respect for him will evaporate. The safety to fail protocol is the moment he tests the waters of your judgment. He might mention a mistake at work, a fear about the future, or a moment where he felt inadequate. Most women with the best of intentions try to fix it or offer immediate solutions. But to a man, unsolicited fixing can feel like a confirmation of his failure. It signals that you don't think he can handle it. The non-reactive sanctuary. To trigger the bonding process, you must become a non-reactive sanctuary. When he reveals a crack in his armor, your reaction is everything. If you gasp, show disappointment, or immediately begin lecturing him on what he should have done, you have just failed the protocol. You have confirmed his deepest fear that his vulnerability is a liability. However, if you remain calm, if you listen without judgment and offer certainty instead of solutions, you become his emotional home. When you say, through your actions or your steady presence, "I see that you're struggling, and it doesn't change how I see you," you are providing something he can find nowhere else. You are validating his humanity over his utility. This creates a vulnerability vacuum where he finally feels it is safe to let go of the heavy weight of being perfect, building long-term devotion. This protocol isn't about accepting bad behavior, it's about accepting human imperfection. When a man realizes that you are the one person in the world who won't use his weaknesses as ammunition during a later argument, his loyalty to you becomes absolute. He stops seeing you as a judge and starts seeing you as his partner. Image. A conceptual diagram of a safety net representing emotional security, catching a figure from a fall and allowing them to stand up stronger. He bonds because you have given him the greatest gift a man can receive, the freedom to be tired, to be wrong, and to be uncertain without the fear of losing your respect. In that sanctuary of safety, his protective ego finally shuts down and his heart finally opens up. He doesn't just love you for who you are. He loves you for who he is allowed to be when he's with you. The investment threshold. The psychology of skin in the game. One of the most counterintuitive truths about human nature and masculine psychology in particular, is that we do not value the things that are given to us freely. We value the things we have to earn. In the context of a relationship, if a woman makes the emotional, physical, and logistical heavy lifting too easy, she inadvertently prevents the man from bonding. This is the investment threshold. It is the psychological point where a man moves from being a consumer of your company to a shareholder in your life. The too easy trap many women, especially those with high empathy or a caretaker personality, believe that by being infinitely available, endlessly understanding, and low maintenance, they are making it easier for a man to love them. They think, if I show him how wonderful and easy life is with me, he'll never want to leave. But in the masculine brain, easy is often equated with low value. If he hasn't had to exert effort, if he hasn't had to plan the dates, navigate your boundaries, or earn your time, he hasn't built any muscle memory of devotion. He is enjoying the benefits of the relationship without the cost of the investment. This creates a low-stakes environment where he can enjoy your presence, but he isn't anchored to your future. He hasn't crossed the threshold where your loss would feel like a significant personal deficit. The sunk cost of devotion, the investment threshold, is built on a principle similar to the sunk cost effect in economics, but in a healthy, constructive way. When a man invests his time, his resources, his protection, and his emotional labor into a woman, he is subconsciously telling himself, I am doing this because she is worth it. The more he invests, the more his ego and his identity become intertwined with the success of the relationship. He bonds through the effort he exerts. When he has to drive 2 hours to see you, when he has to save up to take you somewhere special, or when he has to stretch his emotional literacy to meet your standards, he is buying in. Every act of investment is a brick in the foundation of his loyalty. If you take away his opportunity to invest, by always being the one to drive, the one to pay, or the one to fix the emotional distance, you are essentially robbing him of the very process he needs to fall in love. Creating the high-value environment, crossing the investment threshold, requires a woman to have strategic boundaries. It means knowing you're worth enough to let him step up. It's not about playing games or being difficult. It's about having a life that is so full and a standard that is so clear that he must invest to be a part of it. When a man realizes that your attention is a reward for his consistency, and your intimacy is a sanctuary he has earned through his integrity, his respect for you skyrockets. He stops being a spectator and starts being a protector of the connection. He stays not because it's easy, but because he has put so much of himself into the relationship that it has become his most valuable asset. He doesn't just love you, he is devoted to the masterpiece he helped build. The respect, love loop, the oxygen of masculine affection. If you want to understand the deepest emotional requirement of a man, you have to realize that for him, respect is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity. In the architecture of the masculine psyche, respect is the oxygen that allows love to breathe. While many women prioritize feeling cherished or adored, most men prioritize feeling admired and trusted. When a man feels respected, he becomes the most loving, protective version of himself. But when he feels disrespected, he enters a state of emotional suffocation. This is the respect-love loop. The respect-first protocol to a man. Respect is the foundation upon which all other emotions are built. If you tell a man you love him, but you constantly micro-manage his decisions, criticize his driving, or roll your eyes at his ambitions, he doesn't hear love. He hears, I don't think you're competent. In his mind, love without respect is pity. He doesn't want to be taken care of by someone who thinks he's a project. He wants to be chosen by someone who thinks he's a powerhouse. When you show him respect, by seeking his advice, trusting his judgment, or acknowledging his hard work, you are triggering a reciprocity reflex. He feels a surge of gratitude and security that he can only repay with deep, protective affection. By fueling his need for respect, you are essentially unlocking his capacity to love you. The suffocation cycle, that loop, can also turn into a downward spiral. When a man feels disrespected, his natural instinct is to withdraw. He becomes stoic, distant, or even irritable. A woman, sensing this distance, often tries to fix it by giving more love. She asks more questions, seeks more quality time, or tries to be more affectionate. But to the man who is already feeling suffocated by a lack of respect, this extra attention feels like pressure. He feels like he is being managed, not loved. He withdraws further, she feels even less cherished, and the cycle continues until the connection breaks. To break this cycle, the intervention must happen at the point of respect. If you stop managing him and start trusting him, even in small, inconsequential things, you give him the air he needs to come back to you. You are moving from a mother-child dynamic to a king-queen partnership. The power of admiral energy. Ultimately, the respect love loop is about validation of identity. A man wants to be the hero in your eyes. When you provide that admiral energy, when you are the one person who truly believes in his mission and his capabilities, he will move mountains for you. He bonds emotionally because you have become his refuge. In a world that is constantly trying to tear him down or tell him he isn't enough, your respect is the one thing that confirms his worth. He doesn't just love you, he is devoted to you because you are the mirror that reflects his best self. When the loop is functioning correctly, your respect creates his love, and his love creates the security you need to continue respecting him. It is a self-sustaining engine of total devotion. The non-reactive sanctuary, the silent architecture of trust. For most men, the world is an inherently reactive place. From the high-stakes pressure of their careers to the competitive nature of their social circles, they are constantly navigating environments where every word, action, or perceived weakness triggers a reaction, usually a judgment, a correction, or a consequence. When a man enters a relationship, he is subconsciously looking for an exit from that theater of performance. He is looking for the non-reactive sanctuary. This is the psychological space where he can exist without the fear that his internal fluctuations will cause an external earthquake. The chaos of reaction. Many women, driven by a deep desire for connection and emotional transparency, inadvertently become highly reactive to a man's moods. If he is quiet, she asks, "What's wrong?" with a tone of anxiety. If he is stressed, she becomes stressed for him, mirror imaging his tension. If he expresses a doubt, she might react with a flurry of helpful suggestions that feel like a subtle critique of his ability to handle his own life. To a man, this level of emotional reactivity feels like labor. He feels that he not only has to manage his own internal world, but now he has to manage yours as well. He becomes a caretaker of your reaction to his reality. This is the fastest way to shut down a man's emotional bonding process. He realizes that being honest with you comes with a tax. The tax of having to soothe your anxiety or defend his perspective against your fixes. He decides it is simply easier to stay silent. The power of the steady hand. The non-reactive sanctuary is built on emotional sovereignty. It is the ability to witness his storm without becoming the storm yourself. When he comes home exhausted, or when he reveals a mistake, or when he is simply in a winter phase of his life, your greatest gift is your steadiness. Her image, a cinematic shot of a lighthouse standing firm against a dark, crashing ocean. The lighthouse represents the non-reactive sanctuary, providing a fixed point of safety amidst the man's emotional turbulence. When you remain non-reactive, you are signaling two powerful things. First, you are signaling trust. You are saying, "I believe you are capable of navigating this, and I don't need to intervene to feel safe." Second, you are signaling safety. You are showing him that your love for him is not a fragile thing that breaks when he is imperfect. You are the calm in the storm, a fixed point of reference that allows him to find his own bearings. Because he doesn't have to manage you, he finally has the mental space to process himself. The invisible bond. A man bonds emotionally in the sanctuary because it is the only place in his life where he is not a project. In your non-reactivity, he finds the freedom to be authentic. He doesn't have to win to keep your respect, and he doesn't have to perform to keep your peace. Hanem edge, a conceptual diagram showing the emotional buffer zone, a protective space created by non-reactivity that allows for genuine self-disclosure and bonding. He realizes that you are his home, not his job. He begins to anchor his deepest feelings to you because you are the only person who doesn't try to change the weather of his soul. When the world outside is demanding and reactive, your steady, non-judgmental presence becomes his most valuable asset. He doesn't just love you. He is devoted to the sanctuary you've built because it is the only place where he can finally safely be himself. The vulnerability vacuum. The power of strategic silence. If you want a man to open up, the most counterintuitive thing you can do is ask him a question. In the world of high-stakes communication and masculine psychology, direct questioning often feels like an interrogation. It puts a man on the defensive, triggering his protective ego to provide logical, safe, or deflective answers. But there is a psychological phenomenon that is far more powerful than any question: the vulnerability vacuum. This is the art of creating a deliberate, non-judgmental void in the conversation that his internal truth eventually rushes in to fill. The interrogation trap. Most women, driven by a genuine desire for closeness, try to mine for emotional data. They ask, "How was your day?" or "What are you thinking?" or "Why are you being so quiet?" To a woman, these are invitations to connect. To a man, these can feel like demands for performance. If he doesn't have a clear, winning answer, or if he is still processing a complex emotion, the pressure of the question makes him shut down. He feels that if he doesn't answer correctly, he will trigger your anxiety or disappointment. The vulnerability vacuum flips this dynamic. It removes the demand for disclosure and replaces it with presence. It is the realization that a man's deepest thoughts are like a shy animal. If you chase them, they run. If you sit still and create a safe environment, they eventually come out on their own. The physics of the vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does human interaction. When you are together, perhaps driving, walking, or just sitting, and you resist the urge to fill the silence with chatter or check-ins, you are creating a psychological vacuum. Camage, a conceptual diagram showing active silence as a magnetic field, drawing out hidden thoughts from a central figure. This isn't a cold silence or a passive-aggressive silence. This is active, warm presence. It is the feeling that you are with him, completely comfortable and non-reactive, without needing anything from him. In this space, his brain stops scanning for threats or expectations. Because there is no external pressure to be something for you, his internal thoughts begin to surface. He starts to feel the weight of what he's carrying, and because you have provided a judgment-free zone, he begins to leak his truth. He might start with a small observation, a frustration from work, or a random memory. This is the vacuum at work. The reward of the slow reveal. The beauty of the vulnerability vacuum is that when he does speak, it is his choice. It is an act of agency. Because he wasn't pushed into the conversation, he feels a sense of ownership over his vulnerability. He isn't reporting to you, he is sharing with you. Image, a high-definition shot of a couple sitting shoulder to shoulder on a porch at dusk. The woman is looking at the horizon, peaceful and still. The man is looking down mid-sentence, finally opening up in the safety of the silence. To master this, you must become comfortable with the uncomfortable pause. You must trust that your value isn't tied to how much data you can extract from him, but to the quality of the sanctuary you provide. When he realizes that he can be silent with you without being judged, and he can be vocal with you without being fixed, he bonds at a level that words alone can never reach. He doesn't just love you, he is anchored to you because you are the only person who has the patience to let his soul speak at its own pace. At the end of the day, a man doesn't choose a woman because she's perfect. He chooses her because of how he feels when he's standing next to her. When you stop being his performance reviewer and start being his non-reactive sanctuary, you become the only place in the world where he can finally breathe. Don't settle for a relationship where he's just visiting. Build the environment where he feels seen, respected, and safe to fail. Because a man will never leave the woman who makes him feel like he's finally, truly, come home. I'll see you in the next video.